All right, so we're now recording. Welcome to this month's Wednesday webinar with the Mid-Atlantic Women in Agriculture program. We'd like to start off with thanking our sponsors of the program, as well as all the collaborators. So this is a big team effort and a multi-state effort. So thank you very much to all of them. Here in the blue link, extension.umd.edu/women in ag, you can check that out. We have webinars scheduled through December. And we also have our archived webinars on there. So there's 2 a month and 22 about a year. And you can look back at all the different topics that we have. Coming up this month, we've got a little more on the high tunnels and then some on herbs and spices. So that's part of my favorite plants out in the garden. But today I'm happy to have Erica and Sarah here. I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more, but they're talking about a really great upcoming program that we're going to be offering, Cultivating Conservation, and that's understanding opportunities to access all the federal conservation programs that are out there. So welcome, Erica and Sarah. We'll have you go ahead and share, pull up your screen. And if anyone has any questions as you go along, you have a chat pod there. So Erica and Sarah know I'll be monitoring that for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Erica Crowell. I am the ag agent up in Baltimore County. And today we also have Sarah Hirsch with us as well, and she's the ag agent down in Somerset County. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about cultivating conservation and understanding what's out there for you to access the federal conservation programs. There's a lot of different programs, money that's available, and when you are a smaller or a beginner farmer, you might not know that they are available. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the programs that they have. Goals for today, we're going to talk about what is conservation, how to get started, and then, like I said, introduce you to the available government resources. Conservation on the farm are different practices that help conserve the soil, water, air, and other natural resources. They're also related to the crops, your livestock, the soil. We have programs that are related to the trees and wildlife habitat as well. And Sarah?
Yep, so I just wanted to start by, we're just going to give an overview of, like Erica said, what is conservation? And a lot of folks will think of conservation as being for large scale growers and on like hundreds of acres. So I just wanted to point out that USDA NRCS does have programs that are relevant for all sizes of growers. So even very small growers, there's programs that are out there that may interest you, or for large growers. So just to highlight some of these options that are available for smaller growers. You can go ahead. Next slide. So these are just a few that we pulled out. There were dozens of them on the website that are available. A few here are animal mortality, things to build for heavy use areas, pesticide storage things, and manure storage structures. Silvopasture, gutter systems, watering facilities, cover crops. So you can see that these are really spanning all over all of the different aspects of agriculture. So for animal growers, for field crop growers, for vegetable growers, things having to do with engineering and crop production. Really a ton of options out there. Next slide. Here's just a fact sheet I pulled up on one of them. So NRCS has these bulletins describing the practice, and this is the page 1 of what the one on cover crops look like, and these are about 3 or 4 pages long. And so it kind of describes what the program is. So the conservation covers a really broad scope in all different areas. So this talks about, if you're interested in cover crops, what does that do? What can it help solve problems with? So if you have crusting soils, crop moisture stress, you're trying to do a soil erosion, cover crops can help. It has different pictures here, and it gives you the benefits of the cover crops. The other pages in these documents talk more about the management of the cover crops and some things like that. So here you can just see on the right, there's two pictures of cover crops, and you can see how they are performing some of those conservation functions, adding the deep roots to the soil and adding organic matter to the soil. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So once you kind of think about all of the options out there and decide on a practice that you might want to do, then it's time to actually implement that practice. And it's really important to know that you can do conservation practices on your own. And I bet every grower out there is doing conservation practices and they're not getting technical or financial assistance for them, but there are programs available to help with it. And so this is technical assistance. So you can go to the NRCS office and have a free appointment, and they will just help you, really knowledgeable. They can help you develop your conservation plan. They can give you some details about implementing it. So what species or planting dates may be appropriate for you. Extension also can help provide technical assistance with some of these conservation practices. So there's the technical assistance component, and then there's the financial assistance. So this is really what we're going to be talking a lot today on as well, is that there are financial options out there to help you actually pay for these practices. And we want everyone to be aware that these are there, so they have access to these. Can go ahead. So for example, back to the cover cropping, there is financial assistance that is, in the case of cover crops, it's available through federal programs, state programs, and regional level programs. So today we're mostly talking about federal programs, but we just wanted to mention that there are also state and regional programs that are available that can help with the technical and the financial parts of it. Next slide. So, for example, federal is cover crops are included in the EQIP program, and we're going to be talking later in the presentation about EQIP. That's a really big NRCS conservation program where a lot of the practices are included under that EQIP umbrella. EQIP stands for Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Next slide. If you happen to live in Maryland, you also have financial options to help pay for cover crops through the Maryland Cover Crop Program. And so this, rather than doing the EQIP program, a lot of growers in Maryland will use this Maryland Cover Crop Program. Now, each of these, the federal, so if you're just doing conservation, if you're just planting cover crops on your farm, you can do it however you want. If you want to enroll financial incentive payments through the federal, state, or local, then they're going to tell you kind of what is allowed within that program. And they can vary based on whether you're using the federal, state, or local programs. And so once you, so for example, the Maryland Cover Crop Program, they'll specify certain species or planting rates that you have to use in order to get those in incentive payments. So they'll have certain criteria. And then I just wanted to point out, you could go to the next slide, please. It can fit even more regionally specific. So right now on the eastern shore of Maryland, there's actually a regional program. And this is funding available only for farmers on Maryland's eastern shore. And again, these have certain criteria. So if you wanted to plant cover crops in this program, they're looking for multi-species cover crops. Whereas if you were in the Maryland state program, you could plant wheat or rye and get paid for that. So it's just important to know that there are these different programs, and one may be a better fit for you than another. So to try to, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you find out about the programs that are available for you. Next slide.
Okay, so Sarah talked about the local, state, and federal programs. Now, this is a good little diagram that kind of breaks it down about the different programs that are offered. So we start with University of Maryland. We provide the research and education, different 4-H youth development, ag, natural resources, horticulture, and also nutrition as well. This is where you come if you need a nutrient management program, if your farm is large enough, if you have 8 or more animals or $2,500 or more you gross over the year in your production. USDA Farm Service Agency, they provide the funding. They are the federal program that kind of oversees everything. They have the farm loans and they have the support. The USDA also has what we call NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Services. They work with FSA and they provide the technical assistance of the program. So they have the engineers, basically. They will do the conservation planning that we'll talk about in a little bit, soil survey, and they also have some financial assistance that comes through them, but they do most of the technical support. Then we have MDA, which is the Maryland Department of Ag. So they are the state level program. They oversee the leadership and support of the state programs, like the marketing, all the permits that you might need, and also conservation, which they kind of oversee the next step, which is Soil Conservation District. And we have the SCD offices in every county within the state. And they provide the technical and planning support for the MDA programs. They also do conservation program planning, and they kind of all work together. The NRCS, FSA, and MDA, they all work together when they are working with your loan programs, your grant programs, and any conservation planning that you need. So it's kind of, you go to one place and they all work together. But we also have Farm Bureau, which isn't really a government program. They provide representation and they lobby for us down in Annapolis and DC. So they're our voice. If we want something changed, we're looking, they work with the Farm Bill, and that's how these federal programs come through. So they are our lobbying voice. And if you're not part of your Farm Bureau, your county, you should definitely get involved with them. So what you'll need to be eligible for any of these programs that are available to you, you're going to need a farm number, and your farm number will, it's basically like your social security number for yourself, but it's for your farm, and it stays with your farm, with the land forever and ever. It doesn't go with the farmer, and it's just how USDA identifies your farm in their programs. So what you'll have to do is you'll go to your local FSA office, and you're going to need a couple documents. You're going to need your proof of identity, so your driver's license, social security, passport, and your federal tax ID number as well. And then you're going to need proof of control of the land. So a deed, your lease, rental agreements, anything that says that this is your piece of land, you're renting it, you can have full access to it. And then the FSA staff will map out your farm on their fancy GIS system, and they will start the process from there. So once you have your farm ID number, you're going to want to get a conservation plan. These plans are voluntary, but they're required for most conservation programs. Basically, it's a free tool that helps you manage your farm. They come with, it's like maps, some photos, they list different management decisions, and they also give you an operation. So if you have, this is really helpful for even like rotational grazing plans, they'll put in with this conservation plan. Anything with soil disturbance, they want to make sure that you're managing it properly. So it'll be part of that plan as well. When you're getting these plans, they're going to evaluate the soil. So they'll put it in a soil survey. which is an online program that you have access to as well. They're going to look at your soil type, the water, the plants, the animal resources, what you're doing on your farm, and then offer just ideas of how to address what you have going on. You know, some of us have low-lying areas and we're trying to grow crops there, but it's, you know, we have some issues, or we have some livestock that it's raining all the time at home and we don't want erosion, right? So we need like a heavy use area. So different plans, they're going to help you with your farm, with managing it. So to find your local USDA office, this is a wonderful website that you should go to. It's farmers.gov. It pops right up. It says find your local service center, type in your state, your county, and it'll come up with all the contact info on there. And it also has real-time translation if you need another language other than English as well. You can go to your soil conservation district by looking up the National Association of Conservation Districts. It comes up with this map here that you see on your right, and you can click on the state, whatever state you're in, and then it'll give you your information for there. If you're looking just for Maryland SCD offices, I've provided the link here as well. It's mda.maryland.gov, and they will have each county listed there. And currently, because of COVID, most folks are going in the office. They have split schedules. So if you need to call there, just call, leave a message, and someone will get back to you right away. But I know in my office, I do have an admin upstairs that's been there every day. And you also can always contact us at the Extension office. Our website's there at the bottom. It's extension.umd.edu. And you can click on agriculture and it'll take you right here to the icons. You have your agents, the events, and etc. And we can always help you with nutrient management planning, guiding you to where you need to get that done. Or if you have any questions about the resources that are available, we obviously don't have money to give to you, but we can find you the right direction to go to for different programs as well. Sarah?
Yep. So now we're going to just give a little bit of introduction to some of the most popular federal programs. So first I'm going to talk about the programs under NRCS. So the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which is often abbreviated as EQIP. This provides financial and technical assistance to producers to address concerns and deliver environmental benefits, including a whole bunch of areas. So we have improved water and air quality, conserving ground and surface water, increasing soil health and reducing soil erosion and sedimentation, improving or creating wildlife habitat, and mitigation against drought, and increasing weather volatility. And so a really broad program. There's tons of practices that are included within the EQIP program. A few things to be aware about: the funds will not pay to start up a farming operation. And so, for example, they're not going to pay for you to buy animals. But if you already have animals on your farm, they can provide support to help manage those animals. So, for example, some of the programs that are within EQIP, they have programs that can help with organic and transitioning farmers. They have programs that can help you build a seasonal high tunnel, and they have grazing programs. So if you're converting cropland to pasture, EQIP will actually pay for the planting and for the fencing of that pasture. If you already have that field in hay, EQIP will only help with overseeding or renovation, but not fencing. So there's a lot of little details and caveats about the programs. So the best bet is to, you can do some background research and do your homework, but then definitely just call up your conservation office and schedule an appointment to go in, or talk to somebody on the phone, and they can give you, they're so knowledgeable about all the different programs and the different criteria and caveats, and they can know what would be a good fit for you. Go to the next slide, please. All right, and so the other program that I wanted to mention that's under NRCS is something called the Wildlife Habitat Incentive Program, and that's abbreviated as WIP. And this provides financial and technical assistance to help participants develop fish and wildlife habitat on private agricultural lands. And this is another one of the large programs. Next slide. So there's also programs that are administered by the FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency. So the two related ones that I'm going to talk about are CRP and then the CREP program. So the CRP, or the Conservation Reserve Program. So for this one, in exchange for yearly rental payments, farmers are enrolled in the program and they agreed to remove environmentally sensitive areas from agricultural production, and they will plant species that will improve environmental health and quality. The big thing to know about the CRP program is that the contracts are 10 to 15 years in length. So that's a big commitment if you're going to enroll in this program. And then there's the CREP, or CREP programs, which is the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. And this is a part of the Conservation Reserve Program, but these are developed out of high priority conservation goals that are identified by the state, and then federal funds will be supplemented with non-federal funds to achieve those goals. So for example, in Maryland, we have one targeted toward the Chesapeake Bay. Next slide, please. So the eligibility requirements for the federal program, so these are for the NRCS and the CRP programs, the FSA ones. So you cannot make more than $900,000 in adjusted gross income if you want to receive these federal programs. Now, if you do happen to make more than that, you can still enroll in some state programs. So there's no income cap for the state programs, at least in Maryland. And so you can potentially have other options there. So we still recommend you call up your office and they can point you in the right direction if you call up your soil conservation office. So other eligibility requirements, next one. Oh, could you go back one?
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
All right, that's great. Okay, so some practices do require cropping history, and the Farm Bill will set out the years, and they usually need a crop history for 4 out of those 6 years. So you will have to approve that. And then if you've recently bought land, if you're a brand new farmer or you recently bought a piece of land, you will need to wait 1 year to sign up for programs. So the folks at the office said, go ahead and give them a call and let them know. You can just at least know what you will need to gather and prepare, but you won't actually be able to enroll in a program until after that year is up. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do you choose a program that's going to be a good fit for you? So again, the Conservation Reserve Program, or the CRP contract, those are a really big commitment. So this is 10 to 15 years. You can make it even longer than that because you're eligible to renew for multiple terms. And all of these are legally binding contracts. So they're all legally binding contracts, but it becomes even more of a big deal when you're in a 15-year contract that's legally binding. So we really want folks to be aware of that. So even if the land changes hands, if you sell it, you are still responsible for that contract for the duration of it. And so either the new people who now own the land will have to take it over, or you'll be responsible to terminate it. The Farm Service Agency, FSA, they can terminate a contract for non-compliance if the producers are not meeting standards. And if it's terminated, then the producer is going to be responsible to pay back the rental payments, pay back the cost share that they use to install the practice, and also they're responsible for liquidated damages. And so mainly because it's such a long-term commitment, we often will not advise brand new beginning farmers to jump into this program. At least definitely be aware of the extent of the commitment. EQIP and other NRCS programs, these are also legally binding contracts, so the same things apply in terms of that, but these are shorter term. And so you're not looking at the 10 to 15 year commitment here. So a lot of these are going to be shorter term commitments. And another thing to consider for the EQIP and other NRCS programs is that you will need to fully implement the practice within 12 months. Now they said, like, if you have extenuating circumstances, give them a call and usually they'll work with you, but make sure you're in close communication with the NRCS office, and technically you are required to implement the practice within 12 months. Next slide, please. So the payments for the NRCS and the FSA programs, these all work on reimbursement. So you'll have to do the practice and then get reimbursed for it. And we'll talk about some options to help cover that gap in a bit. But another consideration is that you will have to implement the practice to standards, and they will check on that. So a technician or a planner will verify that you're meeting their standards, and then make sure you're keeping your supporting paperwork that's showing your inputs and other things. So definitely make sure you're reading and understanding that legal binding contract that you're getting into by enrolling in one of these programs. And then there are these low interest loans for agricultural conservation program, and that's often called LILAC. And these are loans that are available to help farmers install the best management practices on their farms and purchase conservation equipment and adopt new technologies that can help protect natural resources and safeguard water quality. Now, these are what can help to bridge the gap prior to reimbursement, because remember, all of the programs, the NRCS and FSA, do work on a reimbursement basis. And here's the website here if you want to learn more about the LILAC program. Next slide, please. Okay, so other funding and loan opportunities. Some of these may be relevant to you. You may want to look into them. So again, the farmers.gov website, you can look into any of these categories that may apply to your farm. If you're a beginning farmer program, there's a beginning farmer, there's an option there for funding for beginner farmers. So there may be other programs available that you could learn about if that applies to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so we wanted to mention the Million Acre Challenge, which is going on in Maryland right now. This is a collaborative effort between a few different organizations, and it ties into conservation. They're doing soil testing and benchmarking, farmer-to-farmer networking, consumer education, and working on farm profitability models. And so their goal of this program is to work with farmers to build healthy soils on Maryland farms and across the Chesapeake region. And they hope to have 1 million acres of healthy soils by 2030. So if you're interested, there may be some options through this program. If you're interested in learning more about that, their website is down there, info@millionacrechallenge.org. Next slide. So some resources that are out there to help you further understand conservation and know about your conservation choices and more about these different programs. There's a really nice document that's put out by the Maryland Department of Ag, which you can see on the right here, that's called Conservation Choices for Maryland Farmers. And this introduces a variety of conservation practices, has a lot of photos of what these practices look like when they're implemented, and can help you start thinking about what's out there in terms of conservation. There's also a more detailed guide to programs. That's the second bullet here, Agricultural Conservation, a Guide to Programs. And this is a lot of details about some of the more technical requirements and criteria of these different programs. If you're wondering how to get started, if you're pretty new to this, there's a great NRCS resource called 5 Steps to Assistance, how to get assistance from NRCS for farms, ranches, and forests. And this really is a good starting point to know what the steps are and how to get started. And then also we recommend that folks sign up for email bulletins of the current programs that are county specific. So there may be more local programs that aren't included in some of these broader based resources, and you can get on an email list to be notified of those programs through this link that we have here at the bottom. That's the last bullet here. And we will be sending out the slides after so you can have all these links. And then finally, I wanted to discuss this new program that we have. It's a collaborative effort between Maryland and Delaware universities and the extension teams of those universities. So it's called Cultivating Conservation for Maryland and Delaware's Small and Historically Underserved Farmers. Here's our website here if you want to check it out. We're going to be planning a series of programs, both in-person and virtual programs. And the overall goal here is to increase knowledge of federal conservation programs. So we're going to be going into a lot more detail than we could in this webinar today. We're going to be increasing understanding of contractual obligations and eligibility requirements. The University of Maryland Ag Law team is going to be involved, and they're real experts in understanding legally what you're getting involved in, and to help explain that and make sure you're aware of that. And then through this program, we're going to be helping folks to create a whole farm plan that includes both production and conservation practices. So it's really important to consider both of those things when, as a farmer or a land manager. And then a unique thing that I'm looking forward to in this program is we're actually going to be doing field trips to people's local service centers. So we'll be going as a group to the actual building, knowing where it is, talking to the folks who work there, just to increase people's understanding and confidence as far as knowing where to go and who to talk to, and meeting some of the federal workers in these different offices. So if you're interested, check out the website, but also you can email me. I'm Sarah Hirsch, and my email is on the last slide, and I will put you on our list of folks to contact, our list, and I'll contact everybody when we have some dates for these different programs. So with that, I think we have plenty of time for questions. Here's the contact information for myself and Erica. If you have a minute, we really appreciate when folks will rate our teaching. You could go to that link there or scan the QR code. And let's see, maybe Shannon could tell us our questions.
Yeah, do we have any questions?
Sure. There is a question about some wet areas. So someone, I guess, contacted NRCS to try to figure out what to do in some of the wet areas. They have 2 fields, and I guess there's some drainage issues. And they were just asking about help with water and how to fix those. And so any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys do on the shore, but we do drain tillage up in the northern part, if we have some areas, or they also have some buffer strips to kind of divert the water from wherever the source is. So I don't know what you guys do down on the shore.
Yeah, I mean, we're just seeing this year we've had such a large amount of rain that I agree tiling and what we end up doing sometimes NRCS, you know, they have the technical assistance, but they generally may only have one engineer for the entire state or even shared areas. So they do have private contractors oftentimes that you can get in touch with. That if it's not something that's cost shared, here in Maryland, they tend to want to build wetlands instead of creating those type of areas. So I would definitely check about the contractors and contacts that way.
And MDA and NRCS are in like a huge shortage of employees right now. So when you do contact them, they might be behind just because they don't have people working for them for whatever reason. But we also use a company called Ecotone up here that helps with the wetlands, and they've been really responsive.
There's another question about CRP and CREP programs about chemical exposures that can be harmful to farmers. So I'm not sure if you guys want to review again what CRP does and where, I guess, is that pesticide management goes into?
Sure. So the CRP programs are the conservation reserve programs. And see, could you go back, I think, a couple more where I described that one. So these are, here we go. So this is removing environmentally sensitive land from agricultural production and planting species that will improve environmental health and quality. So I wouldn't think that there'd be any additional pesticide concerns over and anything particularly to be concerned about. Now, you will need to manage invasive species, and folks do use sprays to control for that, but as long as they're following the label and recommended guidelines, I wouldn't think there'd be any special concerns with that.
Anyone else? Well, I will go back to our contact info in case anyone needs it, and feel free to contact any of us. Sorry.
Yep, and I'm just, so everyone knows, the recording will come through the Eventbrite. So those people that registered will get an email with the link as well as the slide set.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, and make sure you check out our upcoming program and get in touch with me if you want to be put on our list. When we have our dates, we'll be sure to send those out to you.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shannon.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah and Erica, both for sharing this great information with us today. So thank you, everyone. We'll be sending the recording out.